About the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, and a lot of questions have been posed about her history on sentencing, specifically in cases that have to do with sex crimes and children. And it's pretty disturbing. But, is she going to be confirmed? It looks like that's probably going to be the case, but certainly this is the time to raise these questions and to bring into the light things that actually have to do with her career as a judge, rulings that she has made. And somebody who's watching this incredibly closely, a new friend of the show here, Mike Davis, joins us, founder and president of the Article 3 Project, also former chief counsel for nominations of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary, and from what I understand here, former law clerk for Justice Gorsuch. Mike Davis, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm reading through on article3project.org. That's article3project.org, which is your platform here, about some of the sentencing hearings that Ketanji Brown Jackson participated in. And there's some pretty disturbing things that I think people need to know. And I'm hoping that you can kind of sum it up for us.
Yeah, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has a disqualifying, dangerous 25-year legal record going back to Harvard Law School. It continued with her on the Sentencing Commission from 2010 to 2014 and on the D.C. District Court bench for 8 years. She has this disqualifying, dangerous theory that these people who traffic in child sex torture videos of kids, otherwise known as child pornography, they are somehow not dangerous pedophiles who we don't need to keep out of the community, who don't need to be locked up for as long as we do. That's her theory that she came up with, and she's made that government policy on the Sentencing Commission, and then she's implemented that 8 out of 8 times on the D.C. District Court. The Article 3 Project did this deep dive. Every chance she had to give extreme leniency to these monsters, she did it 8 out of 8 times.
Yeah, batting 1,000 on that's pretty trepidatious. Tell me about some of these cases and maybe her reasoning behind these lenient sentences.
Well, these cases are horrific, and they started when she went on the bench in 2013. One of these guys we heard about was U.S. versus Wesley Hawkins. He was supposed to get 8 years in prison. That was the recommended sentence, 8 years in prison from the sentencing guidelines. Even the prosecutor, for whatever reason, some liberal prosecutor in D.C. only recommended 24 months. Nonetheless, this guy had many images and videos of kids being sexually tortured as young as 8 years old. And Judge Jackson gives this guy only 3 months in prison, 97% below the recommended guidelines from the federal government. And during that time that he should have been in prison, that 8 years, that 97 months he should have been in prison, and he was out after 3 months, she didn't even order computer monitoring, which is routine for these people. So he was able to go online and creep on kids again, and he reoffended. Yeah. And so that's just an example of her extreme leniency, 97% below the sentencing guidelines, and this monster's out reoffending during that time. There are 8 of these on Article 3 Project's website. I mean, they're horrific. The most recent one that the White House was hiding from the public just happened 9 months ago. I mean, it's U.S. versus Kane, and U.S. versus Kane, this guy had 6,500 images and videos of kids being sexually tortured and raped. It's just the most god-awful stuff. We have the transcripts, hyperlinks of the transcripts of the sentencing hearings, along with the hyperlinks to the U.S. Attorney's sentencing recommendations, so you can see exactly what Judge Jackson read and what she heard before she decided in 8 of 8 times that she was going to give these monsters rock-bottom sentences. It is a bizarre, dangerous, troubling pattern. It's a disqualifying pattern.
We're speaking with the founder and president of the Article 3 Project, online at article3project.org, Mike Davis with us. What is her reasoning behind this consistency in lenient sentences for these horrific crimes?
Well, and that's exactly, these are horrific crimes. She thinks that, I don't know what's driving her. I don't know if there's some issue with her family members or something in her past where she takes pity on these people, but these are dangerous monsters. And when they're sitting around watching and trading videos of kids getting raped on and tortured and raped on the computer screen, it creates the industry. It creates it where the Mexican cartels go kidnap kids and traffic them into the sex slave trade. It happens in Southeast Asia. We need to have greater sentences for these people, not less sentences. She talks about how the internet has made it easier to download these files, and so therefore we shouldn't punish people as harsh as we do. And I'm thinking it should be the opposite. The internet's made it where there's an industry for this stuff where kids are having their lives destroyed. I've had people, and I've posted this on my Twitter account at MRDDMIA, where I've posted testimonials with permission of the victims, including a 73-year-old who reached out to me and talked about how she was sexually abused and raped as a child and how it destroyed her life for 50 plus years before she finally recovered. I mean, this is horrific stuff. It's not victimless crimes, and we need to punish these monsters, not give them extreme leniency like Judge Jackson gives them.
You know, we're speaking with Mike Davis right now. You just said these are not victimless crimes. The interesting thing to me about this is that in the political world and in the cultural fights culture wars that are taking place right now, that the thing is to make the person who is the criminal the new victim, and we have to keep our focus on the people who are perpetrating these crimes, and we have to provide excuses for them, and we have to provide them leniency. Okay, fine. You want to fight that battle on the culture battlefield, that's fine. But when we're talking about a judge who's looking at somebody who's an actual criminal that has been proven in court, where's the justice for the actual real victims, not some sort of culture warrior situation that we would have now in a judge who's proven that this is, at least in this line of crime, she has leniency to then be on the Supreme Court? Does she care about the real victims or the, in vogue cultural victims that tend to consolidate political power?
Well, what's so maddening when you read, when I went into this, I thought Judge Jackson, she has good credentials on paper. She's one liberal replacing one of three liberals. She'll be like a motive in political like Sotomayor, so she's not going to be effective on the Supreme Court in picking off Kavanaugh or the chief or others to eke out liberal victory. So I'm like, yeah, I'll oppose her, but I'm not, I don't think it's the end of the world if she gets on the court. Now after I read these transcripts of these sentencing hearings and read these prosecutors' memos and read in these transcripts where Judge Jackson's apologizing to these monsters that she has to put them in prison for as long as she does, to me, it becomes a moral thing. It's beyond the politics. It's beyond the legal. It's a moral thing that why are we putting someone like this on the highest court in the land for the rest of her life?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of mentality that a lot of conservatives had going into this, which was it's a liberal justice for a liberal justice. But these revelations have been pretty jarring for, I think, a lot of Americans to take in. I want you to talk just a second here about the Article 3 project. You've created this. What can people get when they go to article3project.org? What's your hard work? What's your point there with that website?
So go look on our website. We're mostly volunteers. We do a ton of earned media, so we're not paying for a bunch of stuff. It's a low. We're lean and mean, as I say, and you can see detailed records on Judge Jackson's background on there. You can see the Democrats' utter hypocrisy on women and minorities when they blocked Janice Rogers Brown and a whole litany of other women and minorities judicial nominees from Republican presidents. It's very good information. You should follow us on Twitter at Article 3 Project and on Getter. Follow me personally, MRDDMIA. It's article number 3project.org, article3project.org. And we are, Steve Bannon calls us the AP, the Associated Press, on this stuff.
I appreciate you coming on to the show with us. And we're going to be watching, of course, the remainder of the confirmation hearings. And we will certainly be following you there and at article3project.org. Thank you, Mike. Pleasure to have you on the show with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll do it again. Founder and president of the Article 3 Project. Interesting information there. This is kind of a tough one to dive into because the details are so horrifying. And if you're like me and you've got kids, or if you know kids, you don't have to have kids to look at this and go, whoa. It is definitely a scenario where once you get a little too deep into it, you kind of have to push it off to learn about some of the offenses that have been granted leniency with, in this case, 8 for 8 consistency without fail by Ketanji Brown Jackson. Hard to understand.